Um, like you had a guy come in last minute and just rip the ball up, but you know what I'm saying? Like that, if you don't secure the ball at the very least, and then go down, and make sure we maintain possession, you're not doing your job. Like I understand the mentality to try to get more yards, but that can't be your number one priority, and we saw that there. So
Hey, hey, but we made all of our PATs.
that's true.
I
That's
kind
true.
of held my breath there for a second on that first and second one. I'm like, come on.
I know. I was just like, dang this.
It's always the first one.
Yep. So hopefully
But
that's something that Crosby has corrected. Again, he's pretty dang clutch. So hopefully we won't see any more missed point afters the rest of this season. But that said, we were just talking about the punt return. I'd like to talk about punts for a really quick second here because Arron Rodgers threw more touchdown passes this season than J.K. Scott had punts. Let that sink in for a second.
love it.
Love it. Anyways, all right.
What was it, 48 to 46?
Correct. Yep, 48 to 46, I believe. So
Yep.
a pretty cool stat. You're probably going to be hearing that a lot. Let's talk a little bit about what the offense could have done a little bit better. Obviously, the huge one being that MVS drop. That would have put the Packers up, 28 to 10, all but
Yep.
sealing the game. But instead, Rodgers gets sacked on the very next play, I believe, and we can't convert. And we punt the ball away and give the Bears an opportunity to come back. Now, obviously, they turned the ball over a couple times, and our defense played well. But situations like that in the playoffs are gonna haunt us. We can't have him doing things like
Yep.
that against the Saints or against the Buccaneers because guess what? They're probably not going to turn the ball over 2 or 3 times. So every possession
Right.
matters. Every time you make a mistake like that, it's going to hurt you. So again,
Or more importantly, they're not going to settle for for field goals 4 out of 5 trips to the red zone.
well, that
Right.
too.
Those are going to be touchdowns more than likely when you play a team like the Saints.
Absolutely. Yep, and you can't be giving away possessions. Even though it was a punt, we can't be letting them get another crack at it. Here's
Yeah.
one thing I don't know if people are going to be talking about a lot, but there were, and I can think of at least 2, but there were definitely I think around three throws that Rodgers had that should have been intercepted.
Yeah.
Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
Like,
There were.
yeah, it was like right after they were showing his perfect passer rate, and they're like, all right, he's got to go perfect from here on out, basically, to beat Peyton Manning, I think, for best passer rate or something like that. But yeah, there's a couple of them where it's like, ooh. And what do you think it was? Miscommunications, bad throws,
I mean,
bad routes.
The last one that he threw was that one that it was kind of like like Aaron Jones looked like he was going to block in a run formation, went out to his left, and Barkevius Mingo was pursuing Aaron Rodgers, but he got a hand up, and it just looked like it wasn't a great throw by Aaron Rodgers. He didn't put enough loft on it, and Mingo was able to get his entire hand on it, and almost come down with it. That one I think is on Aaron Rodgers. And the other one I'm thinking of was kind of a throw across the middle that just went. That might have been a miscommunication. I don't know, a bad route, but it went right through the hands of a defender. I forget who it was, but again, a better defense, a team with stronger ball hawks they're gonna make you pay on those. I mean, again, we got a little bit lucky in this game a couple of times because of Bears miscues. They're not a great team by any means. They are technically a playoff team, but they're a 500 team this year. Maybe not as fundamentally sound as some teams we're going to be playing. So that concerns me a little bit. I don't know what those issues were, but we got hopefully 2 weeks to iron it out.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see him have a perfect passer rating and then nitpick some things. Yes, near interceptions could be, I think is not nitpicking. I think that's like, hey man, we can't have those mistakes. Again, he didn't throw a pick, which is great. But to nitpick, so to do exactly what I said I wouldn't do, a couple of those darts that he put on Lazard, I thought were a little bit behind him too. Again, 90% of his completed passes were on the money, and even a few of his incomplete passes were right on the money. But, he's human, and And I think that I think in playoff situations, I think he's that much smarter with the ball too, right? Aaron's not one to go across the middle that much. He likes throwing it to the sideline, and I just think he throws the ball in a really smart way, and he typically puts the ball in a place where only our guys can catch it.
Yep, that's true.
For me though, the thing that I think that we could improve on offensively is, and again, people aren't going to talk about it as much because of all the touchdown passes Aaron threw, but Aaron Jones had 42 yards of rushing, Jamal Williams 26. I think we only saw AJ Dillon once, which I was shocked by. I know he's our third running back, but just from what we saw in the Tennessee game, me thinking it was a similar type of matchup, right? We had, we had to basically really, I thought, establish the run to get going. I don't know if I want to chalk this up to running back play in terms of rushing, offensive line, who we were just praising for not giving up sacks. But do you think maybe there's something there, Bakhtiari not being in there for run blocking? Or was it just, scheme, play calls? We saw the matchups. I know they had two cornerbacks out, and we matched up favorably there. So did we just say, you know what? We can beat them through the air, and we're just going to do it because we have the greatest quarterback of all time. So, that's the one thing I'd like to see improved. I heard someone take this take before the game saying that if Aaron Jones doesn't have 50 yards of rushing before half, we might be in trouble. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like that insight. We're going to have to pound the ball again, just like we did last week. And they didn't even have 50 yards, combined 60, 70 yards rushing. I'm surprised by that. Are you?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it comes down to a couple things. I think the game plan was there. I think we wanted to get Jones, involved right away. Wanted to get Jamal Williams back in the mix of things too, but we only had the ball for 24 minutes. You know what I mean? The Packers didn't run a ton of plays. They threw the ball 24 times and ran it 19 times. So it was really, pretty even for the most part. Obviously, if Arron Rodgers is 10 for 10 to start the game, you want to go with the hot hand and keep that rolling. But I just think it kind of came down to the fact that the Packers didn't have an opportunity to run a ton of plays during this game because the Bears kind of dominated time of possession.
Yeah, and to their credit, that's exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to keep Arron Rodgers off the field, give him limited opportunities. But to your point, when you go 10 for 10 and you throw that many, we scored touchdowns on each of our first three drives, I think, right? It's kind of hard to stop, and we were doing it quickly. You opened the episode up about the last time we had the number one bye. If you recall, it felt like we would be up 14-0 after the first 3 minutes of the game because we weren't systematically moving the ball down the field. We were just taking shots like we did Sunday to MVS, just quickly striking downfield. And unfortunately, hopefully we can balance that out a little bit more because I think that does ultimately, even if we're being super efficient and fast moving down the field, I think that can catch up to our defense long term. So I am glad we're getting a bye after this because I don't know if we've said this yet. We do have the first round bye.
The only bye.
The only bye in the NFC. Yeah. So something to consider, right? It's not just about obviously goal number one, let's get touchdowns, but goal number two as well is, having those, back-breaking offensive drives to kill their defense and let our defense get, nice and rested and ready, ready to go.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about our predictions. I had the Packers winning this game 31-30. There were times, when the Bears were driving, when the Packers were only up by, one score, where I was kind of thinking, okay, well, I don't want this to get close, but it's looking like it may turn out that way. Obviously, the Packers pulled away and ended up kind of dominating the game, but so I was a little bit off with my prediction. What did you have again?
So I have the Packers winning 27-20, which of course. For the Packers winning, obviously. For the Bears, I'll give myself some credit. That's kind of in the realm of what I thought the Bears would do. Maybe I thought they would get in the end zone one more time. And I was pretty darn close with the Packers too, I would say. And honestly, if we didn't get that interception that deep in our territory, I don't think we get that last touchdown because we only really needed a couple first downs, right, to end the game. So we kind of had, I would argue, our last touchdown is kind of garbage time because it's like if we would have had the ball on our own 20, you know what I mean? So I think it was more of a blowout. I think I was wrong. I thought the game was going to be closer. I think the score, even though it was 35-16, the one play that we didn't mention yet on this podcast is the play that technically didn't happen. Preston Smith's offside to negate a fumble. I mean, if that play happens, I don't even think they get their second 3 points or something like it was. It was another turnover to set us up deep in the Bears territory. And, between MVS not catching, the deep bomb, that play, and Kevin King, I mean, those 3 plays were the difference of this. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here, being like a 45-6, or 7, I guess, outcome, just because, those 3 plays really flipped the script on what ended up happening.
Yeah, for sure. I was close on the Packers score with 31, but I think you're right. That last touchdown was really kind of just a gimme garbage touchdown. I think your prediction was a little bit closer to what it actually felt like. But why don't we talk a little bit quickly about the rest of the NFC? Obviously, we wanted to take care of business and not worry about any other teams, but we were watching that Seattle game and we were watching the New Orleans game too, pretty closely to see what those teams were going to do. Seattle and New Orleans both ended up winning, so had the Packers lost this game, that would have been kind of worst case scenario. We would have dropped to the number 3 seed and missed the bye. So pretty fortunate that we were able to pull this one out. Anything to add there?
I mean, not really. The only thing I'll add, and I think we're going to go into more detail on this, our next episode, because again, if you guys haven't heard, we have a bye, so we don't need to do a preview episode this week. But all these teams seem human, right? Seattle isn't the scary Seattle that we thought they were at the beginning of the year, right? The Saints were missing out. We're missing Kamara. The Bucks, they've been up and down all year, even though they whooped us. Seattle struggled with a very wounded 49ers team. And I think it's just interesting that it kind of came down to the wire for them when it should have been a game that they should have been able, on paper, again, to handle. So I feel good. And I hated when people said we were the worst last year when we were the worst 13-3 team that there was. And we're like, well, wait, we're still 13-3.
Right.
I do think we're a better 13-3 team than we were last year. Right. I think we're all around a better team. I feel more confident going into the playoffs this time around than last. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we got whipped last year during the regular season game to the team that was holding the first round, the first overall seed, which was the 49ers. Right. So I feel good. I'm slowly but surely gaining more and more confidence in this.
Okay, well, good. I am too. I think this is definitely a better team than last year's team. I think we can say that pretty safely. Our next episode, we'll do a deeper dive into the playoff scenarios here. Maybe do a couple of predictions for those games coming up this weekend, and make our prediction on who we think the Packers are going to be playing in 2 weeks. But with that, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and subscribe to us on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And as always, Chuck, go Pack, go.
The Bears still suck.
The Bears still suck.
Go Pack, go.